What's going on, folks? This is Mike from Techaholica, and today I'm bringing you a video on how to play the Lost Vikings, who are my favorite hero in this game by far. Now, if you take a look at their difficulty rating here, let's see, you see they're listed as very hard, and that's true. I think these are the most difficult. This is the most difficult hero to play in the game. So if you don't know, they're basically three characters. You play as one, or you can play as three separate ones. So it kind of plays like an RTS almost, where you can control different people and micromanage them. You got Olaf here, the big dude, Eric in the front, and Balog here on the side. Olaf is like the tank kind of guy. He's got a charge. Eric is really fast, has the most range. And then Balog's kind of in between health-wise. You know, he's in between these two. And he's at a medium range attacker, plus he does splash damage with his attacks. Now, what I want to do today is kind of go over these abilities with the heroes, the talents you can use, the build I like to use. We'll get a little bit into the gameplay of them, but I won't spend too much time in gameplay because you can watch, gameplay videos to get more detail about that. But then we're going to go and look at each of the maps and see how you might want to approach each map with the Vikings. So real fast, if you haven't seen, I think the Vikings have some of the best skins in the game. They're really cool. I love the colors in them. Also, the audio on them is really hilarious. They have some of the best sayings out there. Here's the master skin, which I picked up recently, and I love this, the Olaf Captain America look right there. It's also very shiny and futuristic looking. Very cool. And what might be the best skin in the entire game is here, the Pajama Party Lost Vikings, which I'm so tempted to pick up, and I might do that eventually. But getting into their abilities here, they play a little bit funny because they don't have abilities right off the bat. You don't have your Q, W, and E abilities. What you have instead is you have these passive traits that every one of your Vikings has, and then later on, if you choose to, you could spec into picking up a Q, W, and E with your talents, right? So off the bat, Olaf is the tank. He actually regens health pretty fast. So when you fight with him, you can jump him in and out of battles really easy, and you can pull him out, he'll regen, jump him back in. He's really useful that way. We mentioned earlier, Balog has that splash damage, and then Eric moves really fast, and he has the longest attack range of all three of them. And then you also have the fast death timer. So I think that's like 25% of what everyone else's death times are you get. Also, when they kill you, they don't get a full kill for each of their Vikings. Each of their Vikings is worth 25% of a hero kill. So if you play the Vikings, you'll learn to accept the fact that you're just going to die a lot. That's how it is. Especially Eric. He's real squishy. Anyone can take him out really fast. Sometimes if you don't pay attention, you keep him in lane, even the minions will kill him pretty fast before you have a chance to react. So it happens a lot, but they have really fast death timers. So you can be a little bit aggressive with them. You could sacrifice maybe a Viking for a hero kill, and that's a really good trade-off for you and your team. Then we have the heroics here, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Basically, you have the play it again, which will bring up the any of your dead Vikings instantaneously, or not instantaneously. They'll come up in a second. You basically summon a rock, and then they all respawn that rock where you just summoned it. And then the longboat, which is the one I use all the time, which basically all the Vikings jump into a boat together and you do a ton of damage, and they sing a song. And that's a lot of fun. Alright, so let's go into the build here a little bit. Right off the bat, I always pick up the Viking Horde. It sounds really good in theory. I think a lot of people, what they do with this, and I started in this a little bit, but I don't stick with it, is that you can split Vikings across all three lanes, and then you're gathering regen globes from all the lanes. So, it says here, as you get regen globes, your regeneration will improve. I don't like to do that too much because I think having each Viking in a lane is not really worth it. It's going to look like you have a ton of XP because you're going to have triple the amount of anyone else, but you're not gaining any new XP for your team, right? You're basically just stealing XP from your team. So I prefer to do like a 2-1 split where I have two guys in one lane and another guy soloing another lane, That way you have one person in your lane always gaining XP that no one else would be getting, right? So you can focus on other lanes at that point. I'll show you more when we get into the game how to do that. But basically your idea is to be in multiple lanes and gather regen globes, and then by end game you're regenerating pretty good. Another good one you can always pick up is this Eric one here, because this is nice and all, but I think towards the end of the game when you really start seeing that regen kicking in, you're not really there for sustaining anymore. Now it's all team fighting and winning or losing those team fights. You're not worrying too much about trying to stay in lane and soak XP. So I think this is a good one for level 1. But if you want to get something more of a utility base, this one here where Eric can go stealth, basically puts like a sight ward. You can throw him out somewhere and you have vision on that part of the map. So it's a really useful little tool to use, and depending on what map you're on, this might be a good one where you could stake out an objective that you think the enemy is going for and stuff like that. So this is also a really good one. Olaf's basic attack is I don't know. I don't think it's too great. You know, I think just buffing one of your Vikings like this isn't the best way to approach it, because you're looking for more of a team-based utility talents. Alright, moving on. For this one, I always get spin to win. This is where you get your Q, and basically all the Vikings will spin around and do damage to everyone around them. So you can clear waves really fast. You can clear merc camps pretty good with this. You could kill heroes. You know, if you're able to get all 3 Vikings around the hero, you could you know, knock off a good chunk of their XP with just 1 Q and having all 3 of them hit. Some of the other ones aren't, you know, these are also useful as well, but like I said, these are basically buffing one of your Vikings, and I prefer this because all 3 of your Vikings are getting an ability out of it. Moving on, here I get the jump. So jump basically makes it when you jump, you're invulnerable for a little bit, and also you can pass over enemies and minions and whatnot. So this is really good for not only avoiding damage, but also putting your Vikings into position so you can jump into a battle, surround a hero, do your Q, and you know, it's a pretty nice little combo. So you can use it offensively and defensively. So I like this ability a whole lot. You know, these are decent abilities here as well, I guess, especially the merc camp one. You know, if you're really pushing in the lane, you'd have those merc camps. But like I said, I think the jump is going to save your butt a ton of times, so I always just stick with that. And here we go with the heroic, and I always stick with the longbow. I've tried to play it again. I haven't found it to be too useful. Maybe if you're really focusing on split pushing and not doing any team fighting whatsoever, you could use this to be really aggressive with those with your pushing. But I think in reality, I think the longbow is probably the best one out there. Basically, all your heroes jump into a boat together. There's gonna be an auto attack. The boat just auto attacks everything around it, and then you have a Q ability which does splash damage. So you're hitting basically 2 targets at once. And later on, if you spec this at level 20, you can spec it so you have 2 auto attacks plus your Q hitting people. So you're hitting 3 people, and you're basically a one-man wrecking crew. You could secure objectives. You could use it for team fights. You could use it for structures. You could use it for defensive to escape. You could, you know, it has so many uses that I think it's by far the better heroic here. Moving on, pick up patience. Impatience is a virtue. Also, kind of interesting is that, you know, it's really easy to pick these talents in the game because they're all the last ones on here. So you always just, you know, except for the heroic, right? But it's really easy just to click and get the last one. I don't know why it just worked out well that way. But this basically reduces cooldowns. So in the next one, we're going to be picking up the E, which has a long cooldown, you know, 60 seconds. So having this guy here where all your basic attacks are reducing cooldowns is awesome because you have 3 Vikings all doing auto attacking, and you're basically, you know, you're dropping the cooldowns on all your abilities a ton with this ability here. Some other ones are alright as well, like this one here where Olaf does AoE damage. It's pretty cool, you know, because you get clear waves even faster with this. And then moving, I think this is the fun, goofy one to have. You're basically sprinting all over the map, and it's a lot of fun to use. But by far the most useful one, I think, is this one. Especially if you're picking up the Q, W, and E, then this is the one you have to pick up, I think, for that. All right, so here we go. I mentioned the shield. So this basically gets a shield for all your Vikings. So now you have your E and your W. So you have 2 ways to reduce damage. And it basically just improves your survivability a ton. You can use it both offensively and defensively. You can run in. People target you, throw your E down, they waste their abilities, and now now your team can collapse on them. You can use your W to jump out along with your Z with your sprint. You know, I didn't mention that earlier, but yeah, you don't have a mount. Your Z is basically a sprint where you run really fast for a couple of seconds. So once again, you can use it both offensively and defensively. That combined with your W and your E really gives you a lot of mobility to get in and out of fights pretty well. And then, you know, level 20, once again, I'll just improve on the boat here. Now you're attacking 2 you have 2 auto attacks that are going down, plus the Q that you're throwing down, so you're doing damage to 3 targets, and it's fantastic. This is, once you get to this level here, you're a real force that everyone has to pay attention to, right? You know, you can't be ignoring those Vikings in that boat. Later on, we'll talk about how to use the boat effectively in team fights and whatnot, but yeah, this one I'll always pick up here. You know, I think any talent where you have to die to get the benefit of it isn't usually the best one to pick up. And then Fearless Storm sounds pretty interesting, but once again, I think the boat is just so strong that, you know, doing AoE damage basically with your auto attacks is nice for clearing waves, but at level 20 you're more focused on team fighting, winning those team fights. So I would focus more on the boat for this one. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into game and do a quick couple little tricks you can use with the Vikings, and then later we'll come back out and we'll look at the various maps and how you can approach each map with the Vikings. So stay tuned.
stand up this time.
How dare you bring your war to Luxoria? My temples were built for worship, but they are also powerful weapons. You, I do not grant you my power. If you try to claim them, my guardians will cleave you in twain. Turn back now, before you are found lacking. I would prepare for your ceaseless battle, if you wish to live, that is. Is this real life? Or don't they look the stats at me? The temple opens in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let your battle begin.
Alright, here we are with the Vikings now. So this is them right here. So you can see you can control them all together. If you press 4, the number 4 here, so you can see that I select all Vikings, you can move them together as a group, or you can move each one individually with your 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is your Olaf, 2 is your Balog, and 3 is your Eric over here. And then you also you can left click each one to select them, and you can see that when you select them, they'll highlight their icon here. So you see them highlighting, and if I just press 3, then you see it highlighted there. Press 4, and I can see that they're all highlighted. So just a little visual indication. I know when you're playing the game, it might seem obvious that, oh yeah, obviously I'm controlling that character, but when you get into the game, you're controlling 3 people and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. You might be on one side of the map looking at what's going on, where you're still controlling people down below. That this is a quick little visual indicator of who you're actually controlling when you're playing. Another thing you can do is really helpful is to left click and drag and select them. This is huge. This is what I use to do most of my controlling, because usually I'm controlling just 2 people, not all 3 of them, right? So you want to select 2 of them and move them around and have your third guy doing something else. What I like to do when I split my Vikings up is I do 2 on one lane and 1 on the other lane. So I like to do Balog, so I'll do Balog, press 2 and move them here. Then I'll move these 2 guys down to the bottom lane here. I like to do this way because Balog has enough health where he could sustain a little bit of damage. Plus he does splash damage. You can see here he does splash, and he can clear waves pretty well on his own. He doesn't really need any help, right? Whereas these guys, Eric is number 3 guy here, is really squishy. So you want to keep him with a little help there. So you can see that that whenever your Vikings take damage and they're off map, you'll see the indicator here, right? So I'll move Balog here into damage range, and I'll come down here and look at these guys. And you'll see then in a second that you're taking damage there. So to keep an eye on this, because this is how you're gonna know if people are attacking you and whatnot. Let's pick our spin to win. All right. So the fastest way to jump back and forth between the Vikings is to double click the number. So I could double click 3, then drag, select, and move them. Double click 2. Move him, double click 3, move him, drag, select, and move him, right? So that's how you move around that way. And I like to keep Balog here, like I said before, just get him out of range. Wasn't paying attention. So what I like to do here is you keep Balog in front because he's doing all the damage here. He's the soak damage. You keep Aaron in the back because he has the most range. So they make a really good combo together. Also, Balog regens health really fast, so you could just keep him up here and keep like dancing him in and out of the lane. So that's such a cool skin, man. Another cool thing is that when you do the sippy cup here, that you only need 1 Viking to get it, and it'll regen for all your Vikings. So that's really cool. Let's select here. I'm gonna kill Belloc just so I can show you the how to do the respawn flag. So let's get him killed. Oops. All right. So now he's dead. So now if I press 2, I'm able to just lay down a flag, and now when respawns, he'll come right to this point, right? So when this is really helpful to do because sometimes you'll die. You're like, all right, well, go back to bottom lane as soon as you revive. You control your other 2 guys, and you don't have to worry about when he comes up and having to walk him over there or anything like that, right? So you just set your revive here, and you're good to go. All right. So now what I want to do is just show you how to kind of clear lanes. I'm gonna do all 4 of my guys, or all 3 of my guys together. So I'll click 4 to bring them all together. And what you want to do a lot of times is you want to body block as much as possible with them. They're really good at body blocking, so you want to make the most of that. Use your W to kind of estimate or guess when they're going to be doing their attacks, you know, so you could mitigate that damage. But you know, basically you want to sacrifice yourself for the team in a lot of cases. You know, sacrificing 1 Viking to get a kill is huge for your team because you respawn fast and you're only worth 25% of a death, and you take out a whole other hero, and that's a huge boost to your team. So a lot of times, you want to throw your guys out there, sacrifice themselves so you can get more kills, and you want to surround them, body block them, use your Q, then use your W to avoid the damage. So I guess let's go down to bottom lane. Actually, let's do a camp over here, and I'll show you how you could take out camps pretty well.
What's the plan?
So you see Eric. Eric's always the fastest one there, so you gotta be careful when you're doing all Vikings together. You just send them off to one part of the map. Well, Eric is gonna get there really fast before anyone else does. So you gotta kind of keep an eye on Eric, make sure he doesn't just jump into a battle before you're ready. So what I do is put. Oops. But Balog, you want to put Balog in a spot where he could hit multiple targets at once because he does a splash damage. Then you want to send Olaf in to do all the damage. You want to take these guys in, put them into the middle to do your spin, to do your damage, and then pull them back out again. And then Balog could do some soaking the damage, so you could use him. Then you just kind of cycle him out, and then you can see that Olaf will regen health while you're here. Send them back in. Do your spin, do your jump to kind of just give you a second before the cooldown comes up, and then you just basically cycle them in and out this way. Run them around while your other guys do damage and whatnot. Right now I'm kind of low level to be kind of soloing the bruiser camps. They're a little bit better at soloing the what do you call it? The siege, because there's only 2 of them. And there you go. So just keep running them in that way. When you get to a higher level, you're able to just like wipe these guys out pretty fast. So, but you know, how awesome is that? That you can have one hero basically running around doing the jungling, taking objectives and all that kind of stuff. One thing I'll say, so we'll look at how to do the longboat in a second, and that'll be the last thing we talk about. But basically, I was going to mention that when you're playing the Vikings, you know, I like to split them up early on, and then later on as the game evolves into more of a team fight mode, you want to group them up together and then just look for opportunities to split them off to either capture objectives or soak lanes and multiple lanes when no one else is there, you know. But early on, your goal is to just soak lanes, not get kills, soak lanes, get XP, get that XP lead, and then use that to lean on your opponents. And then later on when team fights break out and you want to make stuff useful, so you send one guy out to soak lanes while your team fight with the other 2 maybe. Once you hit level 10 though, you want to be grouping them back together again because your longboat is so powerful that your team's going to need you there with all 3 Vikings. And the way the boat works is that you have to have all the surviving Vikings together to use it. So if all 3 are alive, you need to have 3 people there. If only 2 are alive or 1 are alive, you could use it with those numbers, but it'll be a weaker boat without all 3 of them there. So let's go look for a team fight. We'll just sprint on down here. You know, what you want to do when you use your boat is to not throw it into the middle of a fight, because they can take your boat out pretty fast. It doesn't have the most health. It could get locked down. So you want to kind of use in the back here and use your auto attacks. But you can see that it does auto attack on anybody, and then use your Q to target the squishies, the healers, and whatnot. And so you just want to sit here like this and just do a ton of damage. You can see there we just did a ton of damage. Now we could jump in, do our Q, and then start chasing people down. You want to cut them off, body block them. And like I said, Eric is so fast that he could chase down just about anybody. So you can really give chase with these guys. Not quite. There you go. So there you go. Anyways, that was a good way to end this little part. But like I said, I'll be doing more videos on playing the Vikings so you can actually see the gameplay on how they work and all. But this is just kind of a quick rundown of how you might play them. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go into looking at the actual maps and how you want to approach the maps, the strategies you can use and whatnot. So I'll see you guys then. There you go, piece of cake. Alright, here we are, the Tomb of the Spider Queen. So on this one, I don't think it's a very good map for the Vikings because the lanes are so small that, you know, splitting your Vikings up isn't a huge advantage because people can roam between lanes really fast. And so, you know, if they kill your Vikings, a dead Viking gets no XP, right? So I prefer just to group my guys up together, and I'll keep them in the mid lane if I can, just solo mid by myself. And the idea is to just look for opportunities where you can roam and you can soak XP, right? So whenever you're mid lane, maybe a fight breaks out up top and people run up there and they leave a lane open, both you and your enemy, then you could run maybe Eric down there. Whenever I'm playing the Vikings and I need to just soak XP for a little bit, I send Eric. But whenever I'm trying to soak the lane long term, then I use Balog because he can clear ways. But I send Eric because he's the fastest, so I could jump him down to the lane and then sprint him back up to the mid lane where I'm at, and you know, I can do that really fast, whereas Balog's a little bit slower. So for this map, I would just keep the Vikings mid and just look for opportunities to roam around and, you know, get picks and whatnot. Getting the gems is a little bit risky because you do die a lot, but with 3 Vikings together, you can get, you know, one guy can maybe die and then another one can sprint in and sprint down and get the gems from the dead Viking. So yeah, that's how I play this one. Like I said, not the best one for Vikings, but you can still make it work. Sky Temple, this is a great one for the Vikings. What I like to do here is to start off with Olaf and Eric mid and Balog solo on the bottom. Now for all these maps, I should point out that you really need your team involved in this because, like for this map, if I put Balog solo bottom, but then another hero comes down to bottom with me, there's no real point for me to leave Balog there because I'm not gaining any extra XP, right? There already is a hero in that lane soaking with me. We're just splitting the XP. I prefer to have Balog alone down bottom because the first 2 spawns are going to be up here at the top and middle. So that's where the fighting is going to break out. So I can keep Balog here to soak XP while this guy leaves his lane to go up here. I'll have 1 Viking down here getting XP while we're fighting over these other 2. Then I'll have Olaf and Eric mid to help probably capture mid or top of whatever is needed, you know. And then after this, you know, the next spawn will be down on the bottom one, and Balog's right there. So I'll bring my Vikings down here, and we'll refocus all the heroes to the bottom to get ready to capture this point. At this time, you might want to keep your Vikings together because now you're going to be moving all over the map. And once again, like I mentioned in the Tomb of the Spider Queen, is you want to look for opportunities where you can go and soak XP safely, right? So you might be fight, just got done the team fight up here. Everyone left. You want to send Eric down here real fast to soak XP while you send your Vikings to go back to lane or whatever, or team fight and do whatever you need to do. But I think after you capture this bottom one, you're basically keeping your Vikings together at that point and roaming around, looking for picks, pushing lanes and whatnot, and then just looking for opportunities where you can soak XP in the lane. And that's basically the general idea of it. Garden Terror. So this is another one where I'll just keep the Vikings in mid because there's no real strong lane here that you need to worry about. So I'll keep them mid. That way, once dark rolls around, you could send maybe 2 up top and 1 down below, just to help with the getting seeds on this side, and then bring them back together to go get the golem in the middle, right? So I think mid lane's the best one here. Then, as I mentioned, the other ones, see what you want to do is just look for opportunities to go soak lanes. If a team fight breaks out somewhere, run Eric down to a lane that's open, and team fight with the other 2 Vikings there. And also, once the Garden Terror rises, I would say you should be the one picking that up. And you probably want to pick it up with Olaf. That way, if he gets killed, or if the Garden Terror gets killed, you still have a tanky character you can run out there, and hopefully you won't get killed. But when you use the Garden Terror, you still have 4 heroes plus 2 Vikings to be out on the map doing stuff, right? So I think it's much stronger to have you take it than anyone else. So get it with Olaf, run around the map with Olaf, and just send your other 2 Vikings into 2 lanes where you're not going to be pushing. That way they're soaking XP while this team fighting stuff is going on. And if you do it right, it's just a huge bonus, right? You're soaking lanes in 2 lanes, plus you're pushing with the Garden Terror, and that'll really give your team a huge advantage. So try to pull that off if you can. Blackheart's Bay is I think one of the stronger maps for the Vikings, at least. Maybe it's just that I like this map so much. But what I love to do here is just have Baylog solo top. Top lane, not a lot goes on. People tend to forget about it, right? So you could have Baylog up here by himself, just soaking XP and pushing this lane all by himself while everyone else is fighting over these chests, right? So you keep Olaf and Eric mid. They'll soak in the mid lane, and they'll also help contest these chests and their turn-ins. And the whole time, Baylog is up here just basically pushing on his own without any interference, because most people, they leave this lane alone. And if they do send somebody, then you're taking one whole hero out of the equation for these fights, whereas you're only leaving 1/3 of your hero up there to get that XP. So really strong, really hard to contend with. I think this is a fantastic map for the Vikings. Here we are at the Dragonshire. So this is a great one, and if you do it right, like I've done in the past where I've been able to capture all the objectives on my own. So as we're team fighting somewhere, I can run all 3 Vikings back and capturing objectives. It's fantastic if you pull it off. But a general strategy on this map is to overload the bottom, because it's kind of you have the Merc camp down here, and I think this is probably just a general good strategy. It's just to have this one guy up here, some kind of split pusher who can hold the lane. And the idea is not to capture this point. What you want to do is just hold this lane, get XP, and try to keep him from pushing through to over here. You keep Baylog middle, and once again, his whole objective is not to really capture the Dragonshire, but the Dragon Knight, but it is to just get XP here. And then you have the whole rest of your team down here, and what they're going to do is capture this point, but more importantly, they're going to push down here and create a lot of pressure here. And the idea is that once you take this area out here, then it's going to be much harder for them to capture this bottom point, and then you can rotate to top, capture the top, but you want to maintain control of the bottom so you can control this Merc camp here. So yeah, I would do Baylog middle, Eric and Olaf down here, along with 3 other heroes, and then 1 split pusher hero up here whose whole job is just to maintain this area here. I think most people when they get to this map, once those shrines come up, they immediately try to just capture them, and they fight and die over them. And most people do like a 2-1-2 kind of push, but unless you're able to win both those team fights and then win a team fight here in the middle, you're not going to capture that very easily. I think that it's better just to go for a long-term strategy, which is to overload bottom and push bottom out as far as you can, which will make this a whole lot easier to capture after you do that. And after you get to that point, then you can pick up the Dragon Knight and start going for that. So the Vikings work really well for that strategy. And once again, you want to use your Viking, which will probably be Baylog here in the middle, to capture this Dragon Knight. That way you have the Dragon Knight pushing mid maybe, or wherever, and then you have your other 2 Vikings pushing the other 2 lanes, soaking XP, while the whole rest of the team is worried about you and the Dragon Knight. So a very good map for the Vikings if you could pull it off correctly. Like I said before, if you're pushing down and you're fighting someone here, and these shrines come up, try to send all 3 Vikings out there to capture it. It only takes like 10 seconds to go and capture and get the Dragon Knight. So all you got to do is stall the enemy team for a good 10 seconds before, and then you can take that whole objective on your own. It's fantastic. It's hilarious when it happens too. Alright, so the Haunted Mines is a great map for the Vikings as well. What you want to do here is just overload the side where your golem's going to be pushing. That's kind of a general strategy people like to use on this map, is to have like a 4-1 push. So that's on a typical build. But the Vikings, what you can do is you can have Balog down on his own here, Eric and Olaf and the rest of your team pushing the lane with that your golem's going to go to. You might want to need another person here if they're pushing hard, so Balog plus somebody else, and then overload the top side with them. But more importantly is that once the mines open up, you want to send probably Eric and Balog in these lanes to just soak XP while you're fighting for the skulls down here, and you want to send Olaf down here. I'd like to use Olaf down here because he is the tankier one, so he can help out team fights a little bit more than Balog or Eric can. Balog's also really good because he can clear he can pick up skulls better than the other two Vikings can, and he's good in team fights. So you can also use Balog as well. I use Olaf because I like to jump in the middle of a team fight and have the team target me. And if Olaf dies, it's not a big deal. If they use all their abilities killing Olaf, not a big deal. I still have my two Vikings here soaking, and then my team can hopefully pick up on top of that, and we can win those team fights down here. So it's up to you, either Balog or Olaf, how do you want to play it. But you want to keep, at least for that first turn in, you want to keep two Vikings in these lanes while everyone else is fighting down here. And what's going to happen is you're going to force them to bring their heroes out here to contest you, which leaves less people down here to fight for the skulls. So it really caused a ton of confusion on the team when you use the Vikings appropriately here. Alright, Curse Hollow. This is kind of iffy for the Vikings. This is, once again, I might just keep all three of them together in mid lane. And then just look for opportunities to pull them off when you need to. So if a curse breaks out down here, chances are everyone from the top is going to be running down here to contest this. You send Eric up here to soak XP while you send two Vikings down here together to help out team fighting. That first curse isn't very important. So if you could just, annoy the enemy team, you don't need to capture, but to hold them there long enough that the lanes are soaking XP in. So you might want to just send one, maybe just send Olaf down here and leave Eric and Balog in the two lanes, right? So if you could just annoy them enough that they can't capture immediately, and then the whole time you're soaking two lanes, getting a ton of XP, and now you have an XP bonus, an XP lead, and you could use that to lean on them to go capture the rest of the curses. So don't do a team wipe on this first curse, right? It's not that important. What you want to do is kind of use that as a distraction to go and soak lanes with the other Vikings while you're just annoying them to keep them from getting that curse. Now, if it's like up here somewhere between your two lanes, then you might want to send two Vikings there and only have one soaking since it's right there. But it really depends. You want to kind of see how the team is responding to you split pushing and whatnot. Now, if they come back to contest you, they say if you send Eric up here and then if they send someone up here to contest you, then that's perfect, right? They just pull the hero off to contest, 1/3 of your team base, 1/3 of your Viking team, while everyone else is down here fighting. So at that point, you could probably capture the objective. So that's kind of the goal of the Vikings. It's just to cause confusion and chaos within the team, not necessarily to kill people. You want to get the early XP lead, get to level 10 first, and then once you get to level 10, that's when you're going to start assassinating people, basically using your ults, using your Q and sprinting in, using your W to get in position, body blocking and all that kind of stuff. That's when you get really aggressive once you get that XP lead. But early on, you should be focusing more on just getting that XP lead and doing as much as you can to get to kind of build your team up to be ready for that level 10 when you start doing more of the team fights. So I guess that's all I have to talk about for the Vikings. I think they're fantastic. A lot of people, I don't think, understand them, either how to play with them or even how to play them or how to play with them, right? So I've joined several matches where people are like, oh, I hate the Lost Vikings, they suck, they're useless. And I'm like, they're useless if you don't utilize them. If you just keep them together the whole time and fight that way, then it's pretty useless because they're not very strong in that manner. But if your team will listen to you and they'll allow you to solo lanes and let you split off and not worry about team fights so much, then they are fantastic. They're really powerful, and it really is hard for teams to deal with them if you play them properly. I will say that if you do go against the Vikings, what you want to do is just pick off, probably just keep focusing Eric down. He's the easiest one to kill, so you could just 1 or 2 shot him really fast, and that kind of, whenever the Vikings die, you lose that ability to soak in the XP in the lanes, right? So you're taking away some of the strong points, even though it's only you're not doing it for the XP for killing them. You're doing it to keep them from getting XP to get ahead of you, right? So if you play against the Vikings, focus down on Eric. Focus down on any Viking that's on his own. And if they split lanes, then just be really aggressive against them, because now that person's having to fight multiple team battles on multiple fronts, and chances are most people can't do that, right? It's really a hard task to do that. So if you see a Viking split laning, make sure you attack them. If you are the one being attacked, what you want, a nice trick, which I should have showed earlier, is that if you hold shift and right click around, you basically make a movement. You basically command your Vikings to move in that pattern, right? So I could click here, 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 and your Viking will run around in a circle following those clicks. So what you want to do is, while you're in lane, to whenever you select your Vikings, make a move in that pattern. That gives the illusion that you're actually controlling that Viking, when you're actually controlling Vikings on another side of the map, right? So if you ever see a Viking just standing still, that means that someone's not controlling them, and that's when you can get aggressive and attack them. So you want to kind of give the illusion that you're controlling them by doing your shift, right click in the circles, and have your Viking move in a pattern, which makes it look like you're there, right? So I guess that's everything about the Vikings. If you have any tips or suggestions, or you want to talk about anything with the Vikings, let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, see you later.